What do 18 years of professional writing teach you that no one tells you at the start? Over time, I've learned that success has less to do with the perfect words and more to do with mindset, consistency, and of course, resilience. Writing for a living means facing rejection, self-doubt, and the quiet grind of showing up even when inspiration doesn't. I wanted to do a little bit of a different video today. I've been a professional writer for about 18 years now. I can't believe it. I started off as a journalist and then did blog posts, worked for a marketing agency as a copywriter before finally becoming a ghostwriter. I just wanted to reflect a little about some of the things I've learned along the way. So without further rambling, here are the 5 lessons I've learned over the past 18 years that every serious writer eventually discovers. Sometimes the hard way, but it's always worth it. The first one is writing is rewriting. I know you've probably heard this one before, but it's important to repeat. When I first started writing, I believed that good writing simply had that mystery spark that made the words just flow effortlessly onto the page. It just popped. Talent was everything. I'd read a polished novel, book, or essay and assume it came out nearly perfect on the first try. Of course, that illumination didn't last long. After 18 years in the craft, I've learned that great writing rarely begins great. It begins messy, like everything else. It begins with uncertainty, half-formed ideas, and sentences that just don't quite land. The real magic, of course, happens in the rewriting, in the unglamorous stage where you tear down everything and then rebuild it when you thought it was finished. Rewriting is where writers learn their chops. It's where we transform scattered thoughts into something clear, rhythmic, and meaningful. Each revision is an act of humility, admitting that your first attempt or your second attempt was imperfect, and that's okay. I like to think of the first draft as a conversation with yourself and the rewrite as a conversation with your reader. Writing has taught me to let go of the fantasy of effortless genius. It just doesn't happen for most of us. Real writers don't wait for the perfect sentence just to show up, to appear. They dig and dig for them, and they shape and refine and polish every line until it is finished. Lesson number 2 is discipline beats inspiration every single time. I used to wait for inspiration, that mysterious spark again that would just light the way to my best work. I'd sit at my desk, pen in hand, fingers hovering over the keyboard and think, not today. I'm just not feeling it. The problem with waiting for inspiration is that it really just comes when you expect it. It's fickle. It shows up when you're in the shower, walking in the park with your dog. But when you build your career on creativity, you can't afford to wait for lightning just to strike. You have to learn how to make it strike yourself. After 18 years, I've learned that the difference between an amateur and a professional isn't talent, it isn't hard work, it's consistency. Professionals write even when they're tired, distracted, or uninspired. They show up to the page because they understand that creativity is a muscle. You train it by using it. Some of the best writing has come on days that don't feel like writing at all. I've learned that inspiration often rewards movement and not the other way around. When you sit down and start typing, even if it feels clumsy or chaotic, something happens when you do that. The act of writing itself creates the condition for flow. I've also learned that discipline is the bridge between vision and completion. It's what carries you through that tough middle, that long, unglamorous stretch between a great idea and the finished work. Without it, even the most inspired begin to fade and unfinished drafts and forgotten folders appear. It's not about forcing the creativity, it's about honoring it by showing up every single day. You tell your creative self, I am here, I am ready. And more often than not, your creativity just shows up to meet you kind of halfway. It may not be perfect, but it's there. Lesson number 3 is rejection is part of the process. Every writer dreams of the word yes. Heck, Not just writers, everybody wants to hear yeses. But before you hear that word yes, you hear 1,000 no's. Sometimes those no's come in polite form letters, other times they come in silence. Rejection is tough for anybody, but unfortunately, it is also part of life. You have to get through it, get to the yeses. In my early years, every rejection felt personal, like people hated me. I'll read the email twice, 3 times, searching for clues about what I'd done wrong. It was easy to confuse rejection with failure with not being good enough. What I didn't realize was that rejection is simply just information. I know it's hard to imagine this, but try it with me. It's data. It's about timing, audience, and fit, not your worth as a writer or even as a person. Over time, I learned to separate the two, the work and the self. The work can be rejected. That's inevitable. Not everybody's going to like your work, but the self, you, the person who shows up and writes anyway, they can stay intact. The day when you stop taking rejection personally is the day you start growing as a professional. Rejection, when you learn to embrace it, becomes a compass. Each no refines your direction. I know it sounds corny, but it's corny because it's true. It teaches you what doesn't resonate so you can double down on what does. It forces you to clarify your voice and strengthen your conviction. I'm not going to say that rejection ever feels good. Of course it doesn't. Rejection still hurts me, but I'm able to refrain myself better because of it. Number 4 is the seeds of success in failure and the shadows of failure in success. Okay, that sounds like mumbo jumbo. What is that? Failure has a strange way of disguising itself. In the moment, it does feel final. A door slams shut, a verdict delivered. But if you sit with it long enough, you start to see that failure is not the end. It's often the beginning of something better, or something deeper, something great. Every failure I've faced, either a rejection slip, a manuscript not taken, a lost client, project that fell flat, contained a small, quiet seed of success. It didn't just look like it at first. The seed is insight. It's the uncomfortable clarity that shows you what to do differently next time. Failure forces reflection. It strips away ego and leaves what is essential, which is what you've learned along the way. Over time, I've learned that most successful people aren't the ones to avoid failure. They're the ones who learn to listen to it. They don't run from discomfort. They mine it. They know that behind every setback hides a clue to success, and behind every disappointment hides direction. What I've learned is that success can be just as dangerous as failure as well. I know that sounds strange, but success can make us feel comfortable. It whispers that we're here, that we have arrived, we figured it all out. And of course, that's not the case. Once the work is done, we'll have to do it again. And that's the moment when growth quietly stops. The same success that validates you can also trap you if you start protecting it instead of evolving beyond it. The applause that once motivated you can become the cage that limits your next idea, the next big thing in your brain. I've learned to treat success and failure the same way, with gratitude, curiosity, and a bit of skepticism, because success isn't the end of the story, of course, and failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. Both are teachers. Both exist to keep you moving forward, and of course you always have to keep moving forward. Number 5 is probably the most important. It's adapt or fade. If there's one consistent in my 18 years of writing, it's change. The industry changes, the tools change, audiences have different preferences, and if you want to survive as a professional writer, let alone thrive, you have to change too. Early in my career, I thought consistency meant staying the same, guarding my habits, protecting my voice, but I learned that real consistency isn't about sameness. It's about showing up with the same commitment, even when everybody around shifts. Adaptation isn't about surrendering your identity, of course. It's not about surrendering your creative process. It's about refining it. When blogs replace newspapers, writers adapt. When AI replaced blogs, we adapt it again. When social media shortened attention span, writers learned to say more with less. The best writers didn't panic. They explored what these new tools could mean for their creativity, for efficiency, for expanding human expression. The moment you start evolving, you start to fade. Growth and relevance demands curiosity. The writers who last aren't necessarily the most talented of learn. They're the ones who stay open to change, open to learning new forms of experimentation with new platforms, and embracing uncertainty instead of fearing it. Adaptation also means personal evolution. The writer you were 5 years ago shouldn't be the writer you are today. I know I've changed a lot in the last 5 years. Your perspective deepens, your voice should mature, your priorities should shift. The work that once defined you might no longer fit who you become, and that's not a loss, it's not a bad thing. It's called progress. In the end, writing is what I call a lifelong apprenticeship. You need to play the long game. You are never finished learning how to communicate more clearly, think more deeply, or connect more meaningfully with your audience. Change isn't a threat to your craft. It's the proof that we're still alive, that we are human. And after so long in the business, I've come to realize that the craft isn't about just words, it's about the growth. Each sentence, each rejection, each small victory has been a mirror reflecting of who I have become as a person, and it should be the same for you. Writing has taught me patience, resilience, and the art of beginning again and again, no matter how many times I have fallen short. The blank page is both a test and an invitation, a daily reminder that perfection is never the goal. Progress is. Whether you're writing, you're rewriting, rebuilding, or reinventing yourself, the work itself will always meet you where you are. And that's the magic about writing, because in the end, the true reward of writing isn't having a bestseller. It is not publication or praise. It's about transforming you as a person. All right, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to download my free book about the secret to writing, Essential Guide, and I will put the link in the description, and hopefully you check it out and it will help you grow as a writer. All right, thanks, and I'll see you next time.